Hello, hello, hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of AHYSEN Nation. Glad you were with us after I've been gone last week. Of course, we pre-recorded last week. If you haven't watched last week's show, all about back to school and what kiddos need to be aware of, what parents need to be aware of as far as back to school and the anxiety that that might cause for some of the moms and dads and some of the kids that haven't been in school for some of them up to 8 months to a year. So that is that for next week. But I was out, so it was pre-recorded. Today, I'm excited to have Fred Raiford, East Baton Rouge Director of Transportation and Drainage, with us. We're going to talk about some of the ongoing road projects and get updates on some of those, as well as where we stand on some of those. And he is not only a good friend of WAFB, he has turned out to be a good friend of mine. So I'm glad to have you on the show with us today, Fred. Welcome, and I understand you were on vacation recently, too. Where did you guys go?
We were, our family and I went to Destin, Florida. You know, it was, sometimes you got to get away, and, at that point, of course, the phone don't stop ringing, and, the emails to keep coming, but that was okay. That's just part of the process. And, I'm glad we got to go for a while. My grandkids got to go, and it's important to be able to do the things before they go back to school, as you just mentioned.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I was on vacation as well, and it was so funny because I don't know how it was in Destin where you were, but I was in a little island off of Cancun called Isla Mirada or something like that. It's about a 30-minute ferry boat ride off of Cancun for a week in an all-inclusive resort. Not one day did we see anything but crystal blue skies, not even a puffy white cloud. And I landed back in New Orleans Saturday and rain.
Louisiana, if you don't believe you're going to have water, well, it is what it is. There's no question about that.
I need to mow the yard is the problem. My neighbors are going to start telling me to get out there in shrimp boots and a weed eater if I don't do something. You got a lot of road projects all around the city that are exciting as they become closer to completion. Some of them have been completed. We've got the Baton Rouge, Move Forward Baton Rouge. And I wanted to get you on with me today, give us a little update on a couple of the key projects, maybe talk about some of the flashing yellow lights we're starting to see, talk about some of the synchronization with the lights as they relate to emergency vehicles, and just some things that might be behind the scenes that we may not be aware of that you and your department are working on. So Fred, I'm going to give you the floor. Welcome.
Well, again, Johnny, thank you for allowing me to get on today, because it is important to keep the people involved in the process of where we move. And quite frankly, they're the ones who approved the tax, and they're paying for these improvements. And I think the more we can provide information as to the status and get some of these projects completed as quickly as possible, the biggest benefit we're going to have throughout our parish, particularly for the motoring public. Now, I will tell you, one particular location right off the bat that I'm excited about finally getting done is the Brightside Nicholson intersection. Certainly, that is one that's been talked about for some time. It took forever, I know that, but sometimes when you're dealing with federal dollars, again, there was used some federal dollars, local dollars, and state dollars. It takes a little while to go through the process. But that particular intersection has just made a tremendous enhancement for traffic movement on, particularly on Nicholson, but also for Brightside, because of the elevation of the railroad track. There was that location. There was always a big dip when you come across there. Now you got smooth transition. not necessarily fast enough to drive too fast, but it's good to know that you don't have to worry about what's on the other side. You got good vision, and they actually elevated the entire intersection at that location. We have sidewalks in that area, got pedestrian ped crossings. So to me, and the biggest issue has been the left turn lanes, particularly turning off of Nicholson onto Brightside. That is always been a nightmare, particularly with school being in LSU, people getting in and out. It was always an issue, but that is, to me, is a real significant intersection improvement. Right now we're working on the Mall of Louisiana, the what they call McCarty Perkins project. That's the tie-in, the ring road to Perkins Road, by not too far from the mall. There's an existing roadway there today that we've already constructed in phase 1. We're moving forward with the other phases. Currently, I had a meeting the other night in the Wilmington Estates subdivision, which abuts this particular roadway, and we had a lot of discussion about access and things like that. But it's going to be a fantastic project. It's going to have another connection that you actually will be able to.
Let me interrupt you a second, Fred. Where is exactly that? It's off of Bluebonnet or off of Perkins, and how will that access the mall area?
Yeah, it's when you look at the ring road on that, Johnny, it's going to come not too far past the power substation, the energy substation that's there. It'll come down, come underneath the railroad track, because we're not building at grade crossing, because that's always been an issue with people. Of course, drainage sometimes can be an issue with underpasses, but there again, we think we can address that appropriately. It will come on, and then we'll cross Dawson Creek, and we'll come out there, right there by, I guess, Centos, just past Centos, or right there by the Sonic that's on Perkins. There's an existing road there now that was constructed under the green light plan, and now we're moving forward with the rest of the overall proposal to get the connection. And what that will do is, instead of having to use Bluebonnet all the time, you will be able to use this road and bring you out onto the ring road, bring you out back there, and get you tied into Interstate 10 going to New Orleans if you choose to do so.
That's not that's not Grand Avenue, is it? That existing road that goes through Perkins Road?
That's where Centos is. Yes, it's further south of that, Johnny, and we don't have a street sign there because it actually goes back and runs through the mall shopping area at this point. But when we finish up the road, it'll have a direct connection to the ring road, which will bring you out to the tie-ins at the ramps.
So let me get this straight. You'll be able to go from Perkins Road to the interstate without getting on Bluebonnet.
That's correct. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Great.
To me, that's well, and the good thing about it is that, the only place, if you do Bluebonnet, you got an underpass, so you don't have a railroad crossing issue, but we need a few more of those, and this is why we wanted to be able to provide that particular access at that location. And to me, I think it will be a great enhancement for the motoring public, but it also provided the issues dealing with, drainage in the area, which will have pump stations that we addressed for the underpass. And we also incorporated bike trails. That's part of the process.
Now, how will the, you mentioned ring road, the ring road that goes around the mall?
Yes.
Got it.
It will still be tie-in. You'll have to, if you're going from Picardy and you turn up right past the Bluebonnet pump station, you turn on that road, you go down there a little ways, and you'll see the substation. Before you get to the substation, you will know that there'll be a little road for you to tie in if you want to get on that particular roadway. If you're coming from the other direction, there will be a major turning lane there for people to be able to use to get on that roadway to go under the underpass and get you to Perkins.
That's go ahead.
No, go ahead, Johnny.
I was just going to say that's that is excellent. And you mentioned the drainage of the Bluebonnet underpass. In my years here, since the mall was built, and even before that, I have never known that underpass to flood until recent floodings, and the pumping there seems to have. And again, any area where you get that much rain in a saturated area in such a short amount of time, you're going to have a problem with. But even then, and we've got a lot of rain here lately, above the average rainfall. But is there something
You're
that
right,
is,
Johnny.
what are you looking at when you look at that underpass? Is there something that concerns you that needs fixing, or is it just a lot of water in a short amount of time, or a little combination of both, or what?
You're talking about a Blue Bonnet?
Blue
or
Bonnet at the
new
underpass
light?
right there by the Chase
Okay.
Bank at the mall.
Yes. Well, currently, we're working with DOTD because we were able to pick up some federal dollars to be able to upgrade the station itself. And that's what we're waiting on right now to get the bids in to get done. I will tell you that I know the event you're talking about, that was the May 17th when we had probably close to 14 inches of rain. It fell probably within about 2.5 hours, and it fell within the Dawson Creek, Wards Creek, Bayou Fountain area, and it was declared or looked at as a 500 storm year event. And if you have that, there's no way in the world you can have a system that can drain that much water in that short of a time frame to get out. And that's why you had a lot of homes that had water in them that's probably never had it, but we've never had that type of rain event that quick and that much water falling in an area, geographic area, and had significant impact from residential and commercial businesses.
What about some of the other projects in and around the city? You had mentioned the Nicholson Brightside, which I go over that all the time. In fact, some commercial buses could not make it over that until this project was finished because they would bottom out. It was just too steep a grade there, and now that's all so well done. What are some of the other projects like that you have your eye on completion or even starting in the near future that are key intersections or key projects?
Well, right now, we'll probably have a couple other intersections ready to go first part of next year. But right now, we're looking at O'Hammond Highway. It's a section of O'Hammond from Flannery Road, from Millerville to O'Neill Lane. We're looking at doing the widening on that. We're right behind that, we're setting up a bid right now for the clearing and grubbing. That's got to take place so we can relocate the utilities outside the existing right of way and put them where they need to go. The utility companies are ready to get started with that. That's a widening of, like I said, from Millerville all the way to O'Neill. We also have right behind that the section of O'Hammond that we will start finishing up the plans and actually buying the right of way from Flannery to Millerville. And that's also putting in a 4-lane boulevard section with sidewalks and bike lanes on that particular location. You have one that I'm excited about, of course, we're trying to look at east-west corridors and north-south corridors because, we have a lot of people come to work from Livingston and also Ascension. So we try to find other ways besides the interstate to get to and from the work. And a lot of people do work in the downtown area. The extension of South Choctaw, or not extension, but the widening of Choctaw from Flannery Road to the Central Thruway, making that 4-lane, that will provide a continuous 4-lane roadway from Central Thruway all the way to the River Road. Certainly you can turn off in various locations where if you need to be along that stretch to be able to provide, to get to your place of business or get to visit somebody. So that to me is very important. It will almost be like riding on Florida Boulevard, except Florida goes all the way to the river. But ours will stop shorter, but it does provide another access. Ultimately, we hope to have O'Hammond Highway finished up, and that will provide another east-west corridor from there and actually get you from Florida Boulevard and go all the way to Jefferson Highway and then go corporate. So there's a lot of expansion that we're looking at trying to do, and we're going to have intersection improvement. But this particular project, the Millerville, is a clearing grubbing, which construction will come right after. South Choctaw, we're doing that right now. We're advertising a bid for the clearing and grubbing. Construction will follow right after. So I think you're going to start seeing a lot more construction activity from road improvements, which is good and bad because some people will have concerns about the delays and traffic. But, bottom line is, I think we need to get these jobs done as quickly as possible, and we're doing everything we can to make that happen.
What are you looking at with regard to a start date for actual work on the Old Hammond, Millerville to O'Neill, and Flannery to Millerville, and the South Choctaw, Flannery to the Central Thruway? What are you looking at starting, and in a perfect world, when would you like to see that completely done or finished? Or is that even a fair question?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I mean, certainly, and I'll give you the fair answer to that too. I think the bottom line is that, we're going to clearing and grubbing. That should be, we're supposed to receive bids, I think, third week in August. That's probably going to be at least 90 days to do the work. And right after that first of the year, we're going to be advertising the South Choctaw job before the end of the year for construction. They will be, as soon as we can get it approved through council, we have to go to council to get all the bids approved. Once that's done, we'll issue the notice to proceed. And probably realistically, it's not a whole lot of work, but it's just trying to address some of the drainage issues in there that need to be done. But it probably will be about a year contract to do the work, and assuming weather permitting. And I think that's when I always like to make sure I emphasize that, because weather conditions certainly impact construction schedules. But we're hoping that because of where we at this location, it will expedite the process as much as possible.
Is there any talk about widening to 4 lanes, or is it even possible with the homes alongside on Lee Drive between Perkins and Highland? Is there any talk about widening that like Stanford to where we can have 4 lanes all the way from the interstate to basically to campus or to Brightside?
Johnny, when we originally pushed the proposal on it, Lee Drive was on there, and it's always been very controversial, and I know that. And the reason I can say that because I was here when it was. So I understand the issues and concerns that people have within the residential area, particularly the people who front that roadway. When we originally proposed this, we were looking at a 4-lane, but realistically, we believe now from what we have, because of the traffic congestion it's a problem, no question, but most of it's due to people turning into their own driveways, number one, or number two, turning onto the streets, turning that left turn movement. Congestion creates a problem, especially when, I don't care what direction, north or southbound you're going on Lee. It does impact your congestion level, and that's what we're looking at. But currently, we're going to look at 3 lanes through the residential area for sure, and that will provide your center turning lane for people to get into their driveways, but also pull into where those areas are located at the at intersections that they can do without impacting traffic flow. And to me, and then you still provide the quality of life for the people who live there, because sometimes we discount that, but realistically, I know a lot of the people in there have been there a long time and are not interested in moving. And we did look at the cost. And if we had to buy out on one side, certainly we'd probably have to look at the east side because of the power lines that are on the west side. And it was probably about 40 to 42 locations that we would have to buy out. And there wasn't enough funds to do that program to address that. Would that have been ideal? Yes. But I think even with what we're proposing to do, the capacity improvement will provide the necessary travel lane that you need to be able to get to and from that area, from Highland to Perkins.
That just doesn't sound like that's something that's going to happen in the near future. That's probably years down the line, I would think.
Well, we're actually doing a survey. We've out to look at the impacts to the homes. We also have to be very mindful of the impact to the forest that we have to deal with out on Lee Drive, because a lot of trees in that area, oak trees, and you'd be surprised. Some people were more worried about their oak tree than their home, but that was important to them, and it has to be important to all of us at some point. So, with that, I actually believe, because you'll probably see a public meeting sometime in the next 2 to 3 months have a meeting to show what we have, run some information by them, because even when you get past the school, right now you have a 2-lane, but it looks like you have enough right of way. But by the time you get down to where all the businesses are, you almost have to tailor it back to that point, which is somewhat 4-lane at that point, which we'll keep. But some of the other businesses, if we went in there and did it 4-lane, we would be putting people out of business in there, and they wouldn't have the parking that's necessary for that site development.
See, that's always the problem, and that's always the trick. You don't want to penalize these businesses. I'm constantly telling people, like for instance, the Jefferson Highway work that's been going on. I'm constantly telling people on the air, don't not go down there because it's a little slower. Be patient and patronize these businesses. Make sure you continue to keep these businesses up and running during construction, because it's going to be so good when it's finished.
Yeah, and Johnny, that's I know sometimes that's hard for the residents to understand, and including the motoring public. But that's why we're trying to do a better job of putting out information. In fact, we try to provide a lot of stuff to you, Johnny, let you know, so you can put that out through your on the newscast, which you do very well, and I've watched you do it a bunch of times. So I mean, that's, to me, the more that people are aware of what's going on, then they got to make the right decisions, and that's what they can do. And what we hope to do in the real near future is to have more than 1 or 2 options for you to consider. And I think that's going to be an important part on how we address that. But business community is important. The residential community is important, but also as the motoring public. And we try to balance all that together and make sure we do the best we can with the funds we have, but accommodate the needs that we believe are necessary to deal with what was the public expecting.
Well, and the improvement and growth of the infrastructure. We can't just be stagnant. We can't not do anything. But now with the development, I'm glad to hear. Well, I've known from knowing you for so many years that is a major concern of yours when anything is being discussed, is how is it going to affect homes and people's lives that live there, residential, as well as the businesses. And that's just always going to be a hard and difficult conversation with people.
Yeah, sometimes you don't have a choice, Johnny, what we do, and I understand that it's inevitable. But we try to find ways to make sure it's not, because particularly when you're talking about residential homes and people who've lived there all their life and have made it very clear they're not interested in moving. So we take that very seriously. But also I hear it from the motoring public, say, why does it take so long? Well, I think what we're going to do, we'll address the issues on Lee Drive, and we'll be sufficient. And I know it'll be much better than where it is right now. And I think you'll still have many homes on both sides of the roadway. And then you'll have businesses down closer to Holland, and cars will better go north and south as quickly as possible and safely.
I've seen this in many other cities, and I was so excited to see 1 or 2 of them here now. The flashing yellow left turn arrow. Visit with me a few minutes about that. Where are some of the intersections where you're already using that? And why is that safer than just a yellow, red, yellow, green?
Well, the yellow flashing arrow is another way, in our opinion, and working with DOTD and Federal Highway, because all these things have got to be looked at and improved through the system, especially when it comes to highways that secure federal dollars. I think it's a great idea. I think it's going to be certainly an educational issue to deal with the motoring public, because I've already had a bunch of calls about some locations that said, well, you talk about the flashing yellow arrow, and most of them are on state routes at this point. They're not on a city, but we're going to, and we're almost finalized the list, and that's part of the Move Beyond program, that we'll be including those locations. And when we do, we're going to make sure the public knows that, and we're going to put out some general information on how you should be using these flashing yellow arrows. It's great because I have to tell you, I know one location for sure that's going to get done. It's out there off of Hills Ferry and Jones Creek. If you're on Hills Ferry and the through movement, on Hills Ferry continues, you're going westbound, there's hardly any traffic eastbound in the morning and sometimes in the afternoon. but that red, you got that red, I mean, the red light there, that won't allow you to turn left. But if you had a flashing yellow arrow there, you could turn left. It's a protected, I mean, you can look at what's going on. You know, as long as the through traffic is not there, you can make that turn. And it does two things. It helps congestion, but more importantly also too, it, you know, from a traffic standpoint, you know, using safety and also the gas, trying to address, I think that these things will be certainly a plus. The only concern that we do have is making sure that the public understands how you use it. You don't just automatically, when it's flashing yellow, just turn left and they got cars coming through the intersection.
Well,
Can't do that.
You're not protected on the flashing yellow. You're only
No,
protected
you're not.
on the solid green, right?
That's correct. But, well, actually, you're protected only with the arrow green. You can do the green turn, but you're almost like the flashing yellow, except that the flashing yellow provides you more opportunity to make that move. But you have to be sure the through traffic is not there.
Well, that's what I was talking about. The solid green arrow is the only arrow you're protected.
Protected.
You know,
That's correct.
You're right.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Tell me something, too, about some of the roundabouts that we're seeing, like the Lobdell Government Independence Boulevard roundabout and things like that. I'm out and about all the time, and I hear positives and negatives, and I hear whiners and complainers. But I got to tell you, from a personal standpoint, I'm a fan of the roundabouts. Talk a little about how we need to know how to use a roundabout.
Well, again, Johnny, that's I've had a bunch of those put up in various locations that, you know, throughout, not just Paris, but also Livingston when I was working in Livingston. Again, it's an educational issue, or to the point, the more you drive it and the more you look through it, the better, easier it is to understand. You know, it's never intended to be a stop sign, which some people do, but there again, that's assuming that, you know, if you don't have any through traffic coming around the roundabout, then you need to continue to move forward. As it states, it says yield. It didn't say stop, but sometimes you have to do that. I love the one that they put up on Lobdell. Two things, the reason I liked it, it's continuous movement in most cases. You know, we've not had a situation out there where there was so much traffic that nobody could turn. That wasn't the case at all. And it, I think it's pretty evident even from morning. And I've been out there in the early morning. I've been out there during lunchtime. I've been in the afternoons, parked over there by the old fire station we used to be, just to watch and see how it's been used. And it's fantastic. I think people will get a hang of it. What I like is that you're not sitting at a traffic signal and it's backing up all the time, the traffic, and then nobody else is turning or making a movement where this is continuous movement. But again, you need the people need to understand how to use it, because when you get in it, sometimes it's confusing. Where you want to turn, do I turn here? And especially when they have the automatic right turn for cars that don't go through the roundabout, but go directly into the street. So, but they're in separate lanes. It's just a matter of people, you know, using them. I think they're fantastic. I don't like it. It reduces my maintenance costs for signals, and then operations having to send people out there to do that. I think if I had my choice, which we're trying to do, we're going to look at more roundabouts, because I think it makes sense from a function from that standpoint.
Well, I'm a commercial driver, and as a commercial driver have had some extended training beyond what the Class E driver would have, and statistics show that roundabouts reduce intersection fatalities greatly over the four-way intersection.
You're absolutely correct. It reduces the rear end crashes. We know that from even when people stop, but they know that it's there and they're slowing down compared to, I think I can make that light, and then all of a sudden you can't make that light. You know, so that, and your side crashes also are reduced at these intersections. But the roundabout, and I've heard a few negative, but most of the issues that I've heard has been very, very positive. And, you know, it also gives you an opportunity to enhance that location with beautification, and I think that's even more exciting. Just so you know, we are working on trying to put some lighting out there. When this thing was originally approved, it was not recommended for lighting at these roundabouts, And I can't even imagine that. I wasn't here when that was done. I was in Livingston, but I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to have lighting. And we're all going to look at addressing lighting at that particular location to make it safer for drivers. You also have plenty of sidewalks, and then with the park being there at this location, we want to be sure pedestrians people can be seen while they're crossing the street.
The only two that I've been frustrated about in Hammond, there are 2 north of the intersection, boom, boom, 2 south of the intersection, boom, boom. That always frustrates me. And when I drive through Alexandria and I get off of the I-49 and I go into Alexandria, that big traffic circle there, they make a game, I think, my friends up in Sinlaw, they make a game of keeping foreigners on, not letting them off the thing. I've been on that circle 4, 5, 6 times before I was able to get off of it. And at some point, you just have to chuckle.
And again, Johnny, that's why I said it's an educational issue. You never want to be in the inside, okay? You really want to try to be on the outside, because those are the issues that you and not intentionally, people know, but you think, I got to turn here, and next thing you know, this car's there and you can't. So you got to go around. That's where you want to go. Then you got to go around that circle again and get out. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's still in the real world.
I learned that the hard way in Alexandria. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Tell me about some backup power for signal lights. I wasn't aware of this until a few months ago, but when we have power outages, and we always talk about when you come to an intersection where the power's out, treat that as a four-way stop. But when the power is out, you have provided backup power for some intersections. Is this correct?
Yes, sir. It's on some of our major roadways, and you have them like on O'Neill. There'll be some on Perkins. There will be some on, it's about 200 locations that we put in as locations of traffic to get them, and mostly to get to and from to the interchange, and also to the hospitals, because we think that's very, very important. Safety is a #1 component of our overall plan. They work very well. We've tried some. We just finished up the 200 locations. We've done a test pilot on some where we had energy shut off some locations, and they come right on, and it works very, very well. Certainly what we plan to do is to have it on our major roadways so we can control or help manage traffic flow when there's no power. And when you do lose power, it's an issue to deal with from a safety standpoint. And the biggest thing that the fire department and EMS had told us that is so good, because their biggest issues to deal with is when we lose power, and especially when motoring public. And sometimes people just don't understand, or somebody has never been through this intersection, a bypass that comes through and gets hit. And those are things that we don't want to have. Now, these are not on any state routes. They're only on local routes. Most people don't know what a state route is, but we're picking up some of those state routes through the road transfer. But there again, certainly, we want to be sure from the motoring public, we address the high corridor areas and make sure they do what we need to have done.
But I talked to some of my first responder friends, and they have told me some exciting news about these emergency vehicle preemptions, where the emergency vehicle driver can preempt a green to stay green longer. Explain a little about that. That's going to be huge, especially with response times improving to get people to the hospitals.
Yeah, that's very true on that, Johnny. And I'll just tell you that while we had preemption before, and the thing that it's amazing to me is the technology that's existing today, the capabilities of what these systems can do. It used to be you almost had to be up on the intersection before the fire department or the EMS could press that button to get it to change. Now you can almost be 3 blocks away and hit that button, and what they have, and be able to get the signal to change to allow the emergency response vehicles to get through that interchange. Now, it's an educational issue for the public. When the light turns green, move forward. Some people just stay there, and I've seen it 2 or 3 times already, and because I guess they don't know what to do. Well, that's why I said you need to be aware of what those situations are. And you're going to have a lot more information come out in the next couple of months. We're doing a lot of press releases and also videos to show people what we're doing. Every time I go to a meeting, I bring that because I want the public to understand, because we all benefit. People in the line will benefit because they can move on through. But most important is to make sure that EMS or that fire truck can get where it needs to be to try to help protect the safety and welfare of the public. And to me, it doesn't get any bigger or better than that. That's for sure.
No question.
It works very well. I will tell you that we've looked at response times, especially with the fire department. And I'm not talking about doing non-peak hours. I'm talking about peak hours, like on College Drive, at the intersection, at the interchange. It's went through there many a time, and people have, at least at that time, worked very well. And when they got to where they want, they said, we've never gotten here this fast. So, and to me, that's what it's all about. Time is important when you're talking about lives. There's no question.
Well, I think if you're sitting at a light and it does turn green, but you're looking in your rearview mirror and you have an emergency vehicle on your tail, go through that green light and then get out of the way. Don't just sit there or determine what, only if it's red do you need to find a way to safely get out of their way. But if that light's green and they've activated that green light from way behind you, just go forward and get out of their way.
Right. The people who were sitting in the other lanes that were getting off, they're not real happy about it. But, that's what you have to do to be able to provide public safety issues with the motoring public. And to me, it addresses both. It response time, but it helps, I think, the motoring public to get through and not be concerned about some of those issues you just mentioned.
I've seen some weird looking equipment on some of the poles there, like I think Mark Armstrong was telling me the word was blue toad. What is this equipment, and what is it going to benefit?
Well, the blue toads are put in various locations to kind of look at how fast vehicles are coming through a corridor. They'll pick you up at a particular intersection. Excuse me.
This is not for speed trap kind of thing.
No, sir, it's not. It's more about traffic control. Certainly, do we have video cameras? Yes, we do, because I want to also know that if there's a traffic problem, sometimes it's great to be able to see it, so you can make your adjustments to accommodate what needs to be done. But it's not intended for that. It's just to be able to manage the speed, see how fast cars are going through that area, and then because of the fiber connections that we have, we can make on-the-spot changes that we need to do to help facilitate traffic moving in both directions, and that to me is what the purpose of the blue toad. But it also provides you that time frame to let you know what the motoring vehicles are doing within that particular corridor area. And there's also going to be an app that we'll probably be talking about to people and to the public on that will provide that type of application that you'll be able to look and see what you're doing, how fast, and can you get through that interchange, and actually will tell you that when that signal is going to change. Now, a lot of people like that. I do not like that, but technology is what it is. But to me, I don't want a verbal command, hey, the signal's going to change in 5 seconds. He said, well, I got to make it, so I'm going to go through. But, there's advantages for pluses and minuses to everything. I just worried about how the motoring public will use that. But there will be an app, and it's going to be, you're going to see that out there pretty soon, Johnny.
A couple of quick things. I'm going to get you off the line here. We could go a couple of hours on traffic in Baton Rouge, even longer than that. But about 20 years ago or so, 15, 20 years ago, the big Segan Lane interchange at Airline at Segan was heralded as this great new continuous flow intersection. And I got to tell you, I've not really had me personally, any complaints at that intersection, even during peak times. Has that worked the way you guys have wanted it to work? And do you envision any other things in the near future that were like that 20 years ago that are coming forward as the greatest big new thing for intersection management?
Well, at that intersection you mentioned at Segan and 10, there's a lot of traffic. That's one of the reasons that while we were looking at the bill, the ramps at Piku to be able to provide another access so people who want to go to either get to Ascension or somewhere on the east side of the parish, they would have
Fred,
another way to get to it.
To interrupt you a second, I was talking about the intersection at Airline at Segan Sherwood, what they called the continuous flow intersection. That was a big, exciting thing several years ago, like 15, 20 years ago when it was built.
Yeah, I know. I was here. I remember that. Yes, sir. But I would just, at this point, I don't think you're going to see from right now from where we are on a design, and it would be mostly on your major highways. And DOTD had a lot of hesitation about that, but and there's some pluses and some minuses to it. But to me, I feel like that particular interchange works very well. When you do make the turning movement, or when you start moving off of Airline, you get to go all the way to, and continue moving. I think that's a plus. That's what people get frustrated the most about, stop and start. And those are the type of things we're trying to mitigate and try to have it more freely traffic flow, but also not to the point where it becomes a safety issue. And there are a lot of people in the motoring public that like to have to go through fast, and that's not what we want to have out on our roadways any more than we have to.
Let me move you back over to the interstate. You mentioned Piku Lane. Are there going to be on-ramps and off-ramps, eastbound and westbound at Piku?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. That helps the backup on Ascension, because some people that can't, there was no real place to get off except 73 in Ascension. Here, we'll provide more access, even though you can do Highland, but in the old Perkins Road, that section where they do and bring into to actually get into Ascension when it crosses Bayou Manchac. A lot of people use that, but it has a lot of congestion in that area. And what we're trying to do is to break it out a little more, where people have multiple ways to get to Airline if they wanted to without using the interstate, or to get to and from work or to home. It's going to be, that interchange is going to be pretty impressive. I will tell you, it'll be almost like a continuous flow too. And you're very seldom when you own the interstate, when you own Piku, that you'll probably have to stop without getting onto the ramps itself in either direction.
Boy, that's going to be such an incredible opportunity for people and improvement there in the flow. I have a ton of questions, but I'm going to cut it off here. Is there anything you want to kind of close with as far as talking about, some of the things that you are involved with that we haven't mentioned?
Johnny, I think the biggest thing, I know people get frustrated, particularly driving in traffic, and to me, and I'm out on the roads at 4:30, 5 in the morning. I watch a lot of things, and get home 6:30, 7. I know people get frustrated, but I guess the biggest thing I see and that I wish people would be more mindful of is the number of people that I see driving, watching their cell phones. And it's just, to me, it's just not acceptable. Because it's a safety issue from that standpoint. But I just see a lot of that happening today. And I know why they have the phones, and I know it's useful, but to me, it does create traffic congestion, especially if you had a signal and the person's looking at the phone and you missed the change of the light. Those are not going very well with the public, and then it creates other issues that people end up, then you have road rage, and that's not acceptable either.
Well, and even beyond that, I'm a huge advocate of the two-wheelers, the bicycles and the motorcycle riders, right. And I have a motorcycle endorsement. I went through the Harley Riders Edge course years ago. I used to ride. I keep my endorsement current, but I haven't gotten on a bike in this area for years because of that exact thing right there, the heads down in the four-wheel vehicles. And 85 to 90% of the time when there's a crash at an intersection, a car or truck violated the motorcycles right away. So, that's another issue why we shouldn't be doing that. Yeah,
and I guess my last comment would be is, I know it takes a while to get our projects through sometimes and get into construction and be able to use it. our goal and objective is to expedite everything we can, but more importantly, it's about moving people to and from locations safely, and from my standpoint, and efficiently. And that's our goal and objective. And that doesn't mean just cars. That means people who like to ride bikes, and I see them all the time riding it. I'm not necessarily going to ride a bike to work. It's too far for me, but there are a lot of people who do. I see that, but also just for transit, bus transit, those issues are important because not everybody has the opportunity to have a car. So we're trying to provide multiple ways for people in our parish to help them improve their quality of life in our parish, and I think that's important.
Well, my personal opinion, you do a great job. It's kind of like our weather people here, thankless job. You get beat up when it rains, and you don't get any credit when it's sunny, and that's kind of like your job with road construction. And Fred, you do a great job, and thank you so much for keeping me informed so that I can help the public be informed about what's going on in the city. A great friend, Fred Raiford, East Baton Rouge Director of Transportation and Drainage. Thank you for taking time out of your day today for us.
Absolutely.
Welcome
no
back.
problem, Johnny. I appreciate you allowing that.
Welcome back from vacation, man. Back to the grind. Fred Raiford was on with us today, guys, and we certainly appreciate his time, his efforts, his talents, and everybody that works with and for him. Just try to be patient. I'm in it. He's also in the road construction as well, and frustrated in traffic just as you and I are. So it's definitely important to kind of stay calm and stay patient through these projects, because at the end of the proverbial day, like the Piku I-10 interchange, that's going to be incredible, and you're going to thank him for those long months of work. That'll do it for another edition of AHYSEN Nation. We will see you again tomorrow morning, dark and early on 9 News this morning, and 1 week from today, 10 o'clock in the morning on Tuesdays is AHYSEN Nation right here on WAFB+. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe, do all the likes you can, and pass the word that we're on all the time here on the